Hi, this is Assessment 4 video for MGT569. So as you already know, if you've looked at the other videos and come along to the online sessions, we have 4 assessments in this subject, and this is assessment number 4. Which you already started right at the beginning of the session with your first assessment, which was your leadership challenge proposal. So let's get going here. So this is due on the 16th of October, so it's right at the end of session. It is worth 50%, so it's quite a lot. And that's because a lot of the stuff you're going to be doing all through the session anyway. 2,500 words. As I've said to you before, around 2,500, you can go up to 3,000. Don't go much less than 2,500. If you start to write a real lot like War and Peace, I might stop reading. So part 1, start this in week 1 using the Interact Journal tool, and hopefully by now you would have already done this, and I've been checking your journal entries as well, and you have done it for the first assessment. So complete the weekly tasks and try and do them each week. Write a minimum of 250 words as a guide. Write the results from your task and then write what it means to you and how it relates to the textbook and module readings. And this is pretty explanatory in each topic. You've got the journal requirement for writing in the journal. Using references and media articles is really important as well. So these are weekly tasks, and you will get maximum benefit, as I said, by completing them weekly. The weekly task is normally due the week after the topic. You'll find the tasks at the end of each topic, as I've said as well, and they are summarised in a table at the end of this assessment information, but I've put them into this PowerPoint. So a bit of guidance on writing your post. Takes note of the subject learning outcomes in relation to the assessment. Present evidence of your learning by attending to the following. In your post, evaluate your personal leadership capacity and capability with reference to leadership theory. So always relate practice to theory. Use this knowledge to develop your personal leadership capability by identifying short and long-term growth needs in the context of personal values and organisational context. And this will serve you well for this final assessment where you'll have a personal action plan. So part 2 is you're going to collate, edit and submit in week 14 via EAST these 4 tasks, 4 of the journal tasks. And I'm going to explain how to do this in a minute because I find the instructions are a little bit confusing for me, so they're probably a bit confusing for you as well. So hopefully I'll be able to dispel any confusion. So don't include assessment 1 because you've already been measured on this, and don't include assessment journal entry, 3.2, which is a personal action plan. That will be included in the full report. Cut and paste these selections into a Word document. So you've got all your journal entries in this Word document. That's what it looks like. Edit, review and extend on these reflections to bring them up to assessment submission standards. So extra references may be included. So they're not going to be kind of bloggy anymore. You're going to actually write them more into an academic piece of writing. Plus, and there's more, so the instructions say to include an introduction that briefly describes your leadership challenge. So the introduction will be the introduction to your journal entries, and I'll explain the report format in a minute. 1 summary reflection of your learning about leadership for this subject. So that summary reflection has a number of guidance questions, which we'll discuss as well, and then a personal action plan, and we've got a template for that. So the reflection guidance questions, follow these to the T. So after you've completed your final reflections in your workbook, which are on pages 130 to 141, identify the 5 most important things that you learned about yourself as a leader as a result of undertaking this subject, what your strengths are, and make specific reference to those 5 exemplary practices of leadership. So you might have one that you're particularly strong on. There might be a couple, there might be 3, etc. So refer back to that. Where could you improve? Okay, so this will guide you into your personal action plan. So this is how I want the report format to look like, so to dispel any confusion. Put the introduction in. Have your journal entries as identified in the beginning of part 2. So that's the cut and paste of those 4 journal entries written in an academic way with referencing and everything. Then your summary reflection, where you're going to use those reflective guidance questions, and then a personal action plan, and a template follows. And at the end of every report, every assessment, every essay is a reference list. So I haven't put that in there, but the reference list is really important in APA 7th style. So the personal action plan template, really specific. So very easy for you to follow this. So you've got a purpose, you've got goals, you've got the incremental steps or the actions you're going to take, and you refer to topic 3.2, Midgley, which is a very good article actually written by a high school principal. Really good blueprint of how he looks at a leadership blueprint. So look at that again, topic 3.2, and that will also inform your personal action plan for that topic, that journal entry, and that'll be a bit of a tester for you for doing this. And evaluation. So purpose, what are your core values and how do these align with your organisational professional career? Consider the context of leadership. What are the goals? These need to be 3 SMART specific goals for the next 3 years. The actions, the incremental steps to getting to this with a timeline, and evaluation. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So what evaluation measures are you going to put in place? And make sure whenever you are actually developing an action plan or a strategy, always have evaluation there, because you need to actually identify the timelines and when you're going to evaluate, and you need to know what that evaluation is up front, particularly putting in place some of these self-evaluation measures and feedback from your team. Now, some of you have chosen as your leadership challenge to use self-leadership, self-reflective practice, and actually starting to be able to, that's a challenge for you to incorporate that into your everyday leadership work. And that's really important. So you've already started to get some of those self-evaluation measures. Your journal entries, in some ways, if you continue doing blogging and journal entering and doing that critical reflection that we talked about in topic 1.3, you will start to have evaluation measures as well. Okay, so they can be part of that. Further requirements, so this is from the subject outline, editing your whole document, and I've included there, you put an introduction, your 4 journal entries, your summary reflection, and a reference list. So this is what it's going to look like. Make sure your spelling's correct and your grammar and your written expression flows, and you're including references and detail where necessary. Now go back to the academics learning skills session if you didn't go, or if you're questioning at all. There's much more information on that, and that was in week 2 that we had that session from Debbie Wheeler. Ensure that the entire document is within the 2,500 words. And that doesn't include headings and references. It also doesn't include appendices if you want to put those in. Okay, so your reference list and your headings and your appendices aren't included. 2,500 words. Look, if you get to 3,000, I'm not going to die in a ditch, but beyond that, I may stop reading. And if you don't put enough in, there might be some penalties involved as well. But some people are really succinct in their writing, so don't want to penalise if you have been very succinct and clear in your writing. Important, the journal entries are submitted for assessment must include references, so you must put references in there. And you're going to be assessed, so really look at this in real detail, because this is a theoretical subject. Explain and summarise the theoretical ideas in your own words. Apply theoretical models and concepts to practical leadership issues and scenarios, which I've noticed some of you have started to do with your personal best leadership experience. Analyse your leadership practice and that of others with reference to the theoretical models and concepts. So that's the lens. The theoretical models are the lens through which you actually can analyse your own practice. Evaluate the value of leadership knowledge for your own leadership practice and that of others with reference to these models. Generating your own values, vision and guides for leadership practice and planning for future leadership development. So the outcome of this is a really succinct, a really purposeful action plan that you can use as a blueprint for the next 3 years, and that can include your learning in your subjects, in your course, whichever course you're undertaking. The journal entries, you can pick 4 of these. So these are the 4 from which you can pick. It did say that you couldn't pick the last one, so don't pick that. And not picking the leadership challenge. So it's just these in this middle here, these where we've got 4 posts from 1.3 to 3.1. Okay, so any of those you can select. The marking rubric is actually fairly detailed, and it'll be interesting to see how I mark this with my sometimes lack of detail orientation, but I will follow this to the T. So the timeliness of your journal tasks, and I am looking at these journal tasks as they're being entered and looking at, getting a gauge of when you're putting them in and they are timely. Don't get too stressed about this. If you're a week or 2 over, it's not going to be penalised. So this is out of 5. Then the 4 curated posts. So this is 250 words or around 1,000 words for this. This is worth 15. Okay, so this is really important. So really look at the criteria across here. Each post evaluates personal leadership capacity and capability. So each post discusses personal across, and expertly across to you may not submit the 4 posts. There might be a lack of critique, etc. So look across to see what you're aiming for. Most students aim for a credit or above. If you want above a credit, you really need to include references and read more widely than the subject. So distinction and above, we're looking at that. The summary reflection, look at this, and this is based on the 4 posts submitted. So you do a summary reflection of those 4 posts, okay, not of your whole thing, a summary reflection of those 4 posts. And I'll make sure that when I run a session on this with you, an online meeting, that I stress that as well. We get a lot of Q&A because it's important for you to be able to ask questions. So to get a high distinction needs to be critical and insightful. For distinction across. Okay? So that summary reflection with the 5 guiding questions, 5 guiding questions I think there were, will help you as well. Then your action plan, and that's pretty explicit that you need to have 3 action goals, 3 SMART goals. For a pass, these may not meet the SMART criteria. And if you look at the nuances in this criteria, potential risks, obstacles along the way are acknowledged and strategies to overcome included. So that gives you a little bit extra in your action plan. Writing structure is really important, and presentation and references always important, and make sure you do the APA 7th. It is required now, and we have to have that from now on. So if there's any other questions, if I go backwards, one other point is I have included under each of these links how you actually submit your assessments through Turnitin to check them for plagiarism. I am required to check all assessments for plagiarism, and so go on the site, have a look, look at the school account, and get your own account in Turnitin. Okay? Thanks for listening. Cheers.